Let's take a look at using some of the vector tools in Photoshop. The most important vector tool in Photoshop is the pen tool, and it creates vector objects, which are made up of mathematics. They're composed of points and paths, and they're predominantly used for creating flat, more decorative graphics. Photoshop isn't really known for creating vector graphics. That's Adobe Illustrator. That's what it does. That's its forte. But Photoshop uses tools like the pen tool to create some of these more simple graphics, simple shapes, but it's really most useful for creating selections in photos, right? You can draw with the pen tool very precise selections that'll help you isolate elements in your photographs, cut them out, composite them. It's been used that way for a long time with great success. And anytime something is really difficult to select using the standard selection tools, I reach for the pen tool because I know if I take my time and really use the pen tool effectively, I can cut anything out that I need to. Again, Photoshop is known for bitmap graphics, also known as raster graphics. And this is where you draw pixel by pixel, or bitmaps are great for photographs. They can handle lots of detail. It's, they can create real subtle blends. Now, the issue is the file sizes are really big. And if you try to resize a bitmap, like increase its size, you lose quality when you do that. Pixels don't like it when you try to make them more than what they are. Now, you can reduce the size of a bitmap and not really lose quality, but sizing it up is a problem. Now, vectors, on the other hand, made up of mathematical equations. They consist of points and paths that define shapes, and they're, again, used for more flat graphics. Like in this image, here's a vector drawing of an object. And, these vectors are great for logos and things of that nature. Again, we're going to take a look at the pen tool in a more practical Photoshop-like environment. Logos are typically better drawn in Illustrator than in Photoshop. But just so that you can see here, like this thing is made up of anchor points and handles and paths in between those points, right? You can get the direct select tool here in Photoshop and move anchor points and adjust the curve at that spot, right? So these vector objects are a little strange to us at first, right? Trying to figure out how they behave. But once you get it down, this is going to be your best friend. It's not the easiest tool in the world to learn, but you can do it, like practice. You don't want to give up. This is a tool that you will use in practically every graphics program. Every program that I know of basically has Bezier curves, or a tool to adjust those curves like this to create these objects. I'm going to jump over here to start teaching you how to use the pen tool. The P key is the shortcut on the keyboard. And you can see here I've got just a series of straight line paths to draw. And so with the pen tool, basically what you're going to do is click anywhere that you want to put down an anchor point. So on this line segment A to B, right, let me zoom in here. I'll click at point A. There's my first anchor point. They usually show up, they're blue. And I'm going to click at point B. Wow, that was exciting. I've created a very basic vector line, right? So, and again, anchor points with a path in between. Let me move this over here so you can see it a little better. You can hold down the Command key or Control on a PC and click to select individual anchor points, right? If it's filled in, then it is active, right? See that? So that's my first anchor point that I drew. Here's the path in between. And there's my second one down below. If I hold down Command, it gives me the direct selection tool, the white arrow, which allows me to edit this. So I can click on one of those anchor points and move it, or I can click on the path and move the whole path. When I let go of the Command key or Control, again on a PC, it goes back to the pen tool. So what if I jump over here to C and D, this next vector line? Well, when I click at C, Photoshop thinks that I want to continue drawing from B, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that. What you have to do when you're drawing individual lines like this is hold down Command and click off of that path to deactivate it. See how the anchor points go away? That means it's no longer selected, it's no longer active. And now I can go to C and then D, right? Again, hold down the Command key or Control, and you can move this and edit however you need to. So I'm going to move over next door here. Once again, Command click off of that to deselect it before you draw the next one. All right, E, F. Vectors can get more complex. It just depends on how many points, how many paths. Okay, so selecting points after you've created a path like this, if you, again, hold on the Command key, and by the way, the tool that I'm talking about is over here, right? This is the direct selection tool, the white arrow. It's a couple of doors down from the pen tool in the toolbox, right? Now, there's a distinction. There's the regular path selection tool, which allows you to select an entire path and move it, or the white arrow, the direct selection tool, that allows you to click on a single anchor point and adjust it, right? Let me undo that. I'm going to go back to the pen tool, right? Again, the quick way to draw is keep the pen tool active and just hold down the Command key to access that direct selection tool when you want to edit, okay? Now in this case, I'm going to Command click this anchor point at the top, and then I'm going to Shift click. I'm still holding Command down. If you Shift click, you can add to the selection, right? Shift is the key that adds stuff. All right, so I've got them both selected. Now I just hold the Command key down and I can click on one anchor point and they both move together, right? Get the idea? You can also, I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that. You can also hold down the Command key, click and drag a selection window basically over those two anchor points at the top. Essentially does the same thing, right? So shift clicking or selecting with a selection window like that. A good way to select multiple anchor points if you need to edit more than one at a time. Now over here, this is a shape, right? And up until now, I've just been drawing with paths. If you look up here at the options bar at the top, I've been using the pen tool to draw paths, which are, they're not really actually there. They're useful objects that you can turn into something else, right? And most notably up here on the options bar, like you can take a path and turn it into a selection or create a mask from it or create a shape from it, right? Let's just explore that, shall we? So if I go J, K, L, and then back to J, you're going to notice a little circle shows up next to my cursor, which means I'm about to enclose this path and make a shape. Again, if I get my direct selection tool out, I can see that that's a completed shape there, right? If you look up here at the options bar, I could take that path while it's still selected and hit the selection button. And I've got options. I could feather the selection, or if I already had another selection, I could change the operation here. But I just took that vector shape and turned it into a selection. So you can see if you can draw a really useful path with the pen tool, you can then turn it into a selection and use it however you need to. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that. Now, again, with that same shape selected, I could turn that into a mask, and now it's masking my background layer, right? Everything else is hidden, and only that area inside the path is now turned into a mask. And if you look over here in the layers panel, see it's created a mask on that layer from my selections that I made. My vector objects that I drew with the pen tool. Again, I'm going to hit Command-Z to undo that. And then finally, I can take that path and turn it into a shape layer, right? Again, look over here at my layers panel. All these objects that I've drawn so far have been turned into shapes now. That shape, if I were to, get the shape tool, now up here in my options bar, I've got, the ability to change the stroke or the fill of that shape, right? Makes sense? That's the thing here. I want to point out to you that if I've got the pen tool, I can either draw paths or I could switch to draw shapes with it also, right? So if I just start drawing this thing, and I've changed my pen tool to draw with shapes rather than paths, then it automatically creates a shape layer for me rather than just paths, okay? There's a distinction. Simple clicking point to point with the pen tool to draw simple, kind of more rectangular or angular shapes. All right, I'm going to move on to curves now. Now this is where it gets more interesting. I need to be able to create curved lines with the pen tool. Basically what this diagram is showing you is like where the squares are, that's where I'm laying down an anchor point, where I'm clicking first. And this red dot is where I'm dragging a handle. Now handles are how you control how a path curves between anchor points. So if I click at point A to create an anchor point, I'm dragging a handle up to that red dot. And what I'm doing here is telling Photoshop that I'm drawing this path in an upward fashion, right? So this leading handle means that the path is going to come up and out of that anchor point. Now you're going to notice there's an equal and opposite handle going the other way, right? This is kind of a strange thing about vectors and how they're drawn with the pen tool. That's not the most user-friendly, most intuitive tool in the world, but you'll come to an understanding. Once again, I click at point A and drag a handle up and out of it. Now watch this. When I click at point B and drag handles, you see how that opposite handle is now going up. And I can eyeball that and watch and see when that curve that I want to draw is complete, right? Oh, and by the way, guess what? I'm still drawing with shapes. It's really important that you remember that you want to draw with paths in some instances and shapes in others. So I'm going to have to undo this. Make sure again that I've got this set for paths instead of shapes, because I'm just wanting to draw paths right now. To review, click at point A and drag up, you get handle. That handle controls the curve for this next segment that I'm drawing, right? Click and drag down at point B until that backside handle creates the curve that I want. And it also leads the path in the next direction, which is going down. So I click at point C, again, drag a handle to control the curve until I'm happy with it. And then finally click at point D and drag down to complete that shape, right? Well, it's not a shape, it's just a path. I'm going to just show, I'm going to move this. Command Option click will select the entire path. All of the anchor points will be filled in so you can move it. That's what the thing looks like. So I can click on these anchor points with the direct selection tool and I can modify them, right? See how the handles control the way that the curve behaves, right? Or even the position of that anchor point. right? So I can edit this by holding the Command or Control key down to modify that curve, right? Handles control the way the curve behaves. Anchor points control the position of the shape. Get the idea? Here's E to F. I'm going to Command click off that to deactivate that last one. Click and drag at point E in an upward fashion. Now if I click at point F and drag upward again, what I get is this S curve kind of path. Paths always want to stay as smooth as possible when you're dragging handles out from those anchor points. So what happens here is that point goes up, leading the path in an upward fashion, and in order to stay smooth through point F, it dips down below it before coming back up. Again, after a while, you get used to how this thing works. And once again, if I were to switch from paths to drawing with shapes, I could draw this thing, right? I'm clicking and dragging up at point G, the handle to control the curve, click and drag down at point H. Again, you can see now I'm drawing with a shape instead of a path. So you can draw shapes with the pen tool as well. Combination, straight and curved. Now it gets even more complex. I'm going to draw curves that need like sharp corner points. So here at point A, I'm going to click and drag up because I want the curve to go upward. At point B, I'm going to click and drag down to that red dot to complete that first path. I did it again. This is not going to be something that you will be immune to either. If you switch to the shape tool, make sure you switch back to the path. If you're drawing with shapes, make sure you switch back to path if that's what you're wanting to do. All right, click and drag up, click and drag downward at point B. I've drawn this pathway that I want to. I've got this leading handle. If I were to just go to point C and click, the path, like I mentioned, wants to stay smooth, so it comes down through this before coming back up to C. But that's not what I want to do. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that. All right, check this out. If you hold down the Option key or the Alt key on a PC, you can grab a handle. You see that? And your cursor is going to turn into the Convert tool. And this allows you to convert a smooth point to a corner point. So I'm going to Option or Alt click that handle and drag it back up this direction. And what I've just done is told Photoshop, now I want this to come to a sharp point here before I go on to point C. So now I'm going to click and drag. Again, Option is the key that allows you to edit a path as you're drawing it, right? That gives you the Convert tool. So I'm going to move over here to the next one, right? All right, D to E is, Command click off to deactivate the last one. D to E is just a straight line, so I don't have to drag handles. I'm just going to click from point to point. Now, E to F is a curve, so I'm going to click on the anchor point at E and drag a handle up out of it. I'm telling Photoshop it's going to curve upwards now. I'm going to click at point F and drag your handle down until you've got the curve looking the way you want it to. Once again, I've got this leading handle. If I just click on point G, that handle here is going to make it curve downward. So I'm going to hit Command Z to undo that. In this case, F to G is just a straight line. All I have to do is Option or Alt click this anchor point to get rid of the lead handle now. And you'll see a little Convert tool symbol show up next to your pen. Option or Alt click that lead point. It gets rid of that handle, and now I can just click on point G to finish. Okay? It takes a little getting used to, but you'll figure it out. Don't give up too quick. The Option or Alt key, that's really the key to creating corner points. So here, I've already got paths drawn. So I'm over here on the Paths panel on the right-hand side. Next to layers and channels, there's a paths panel. And if you create work paths, you can name them and they'll be saved with your file. But you got to name them just like you name a layer. So I've saved these. The add and delete points path, it's hard to see here, but I've got a path here. And what I'm going to do is use the pen tool to click where that red point is supposed to be. I'm going to click right there. What it does is adds an anchor point. You'll see a little plus sign show up next to your cursor. I've just added an anchor point. So if I hold down the command key now, it gives me the direct selection tool, the white arrow. I can click at that point and drag up. Next door here, this guy, again, I'm going to move it so you can see a little better. If I bring my pen tool over the top of an existing anchor point, it's going to bring up the minus sign, and it will then delete that point when I click it. So adding points and subtracting points is real easy. You don't even have to hold a key down. You just click on them to add or remove them. All right, so here I'm going to edit this set of objects to convert them, right? So I've got a star shape out here. If I command click it, I'll activate it so I can see the anchor points. It's active. Well, each one of these outside points is a corner point, a sharp corner. I want to convert that to a curve. So again, the Option key allows me to convert. So if I hold down Option or Alt on a PC, I can click and drag handles to convert it from corner to curve, right? So I'm just going to click on each of these and drag it. Oops, I missed. There we go. Now the one inside here, I command clicked it to activate it. Once again, if I hold down the Option key or Alt on a PC, I can bring that to an existing curved point and convert it to a corner by just Option clicking it. See that? It's getting rid of the handles and just making it a sharp corner. There you have it. This is not the easiest tool in the world to learn how to use. Once you get it down, these rudimentary things down, you'll be able to make really accurate drawings of things in Photoshop, especially selections that are difficult to make any other way. You can draw a vector outline around those objects in those photos and cut them out very easily. So I just want to encourage you to keep practicing with this thing until you feel comfortable with it. It won't happen overnight, but don't give up. It's difficult, but this is how you really separate yourself as a technician in these programs, is to learn how to draw vectors really well. So practice. All right, good luck to you.